out there, Blitz Nation. Welcome back for another edition of Blindside Blitz. I will be your host this time because, unfortunately, our good friend Jimmy, he is under the weather a little bit. Can't really talk, sore throat and all that. His whole family's going through it, but we wish you all the best, Jimmy. But alongside of me is the man, the myth, the legend that they call Big John. What's going
Hey,
on, Big
what's up?
John?
I'm doing fine, Joe. I'm doing fine. And I have to cop to something before we get started. Earlier this week, last week rather, at the end of last week, I was on William's show, Fired Up, conservative talk show here at Grumblings Media. And I said that in a certain light, you reminded me of John Fetterman. So I want to just cop to that. Not the way you act, just the way you look. So I just wanted to cop to that before someone put the bad word in your ear. I just wanted to cop to that.
All right, gotcha. Well, we got a show packed for you guys out there. And if you could do us a huge favor, we are growing like crazy, basically like weeds over at YouTube. Head over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button for us. Make sure you hit the thumbs up while you're there. And don't forget to comment down below because we read all the comments. We want you guys involved in this. This is an interactive show. We are live right now. So any comments you drop down below, we're going to answer questions. Well, even if you want to give your opinion, we're all here for you. And you can head over to grumblingsmedia.com to check out all the latest and greatest podcasts like ours, also articles, whether it be political, sports, entertainment. It's all there for you guys. You can also check us out on rumble.com and also on Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, X, and anywhere you get your podcasts. So make sure you drop a follow. Make sure you keep this lively. Let's keep the steam going here. We got some big topics here now. So what's interesting right now is Mike Vrabel has decided on where he wants to head coach, and it's not something that's surprising, but it's something that a lot of people anticipated. Mike Vrabel now will be heading over to the New England Patriots, like a lot of people thought. And Big John, you think this is the right move?
Yeah, I do. I mean, listen, I'm not 100% sure if Vrabel is the coach that gets you to a Super Bowl. I know he's a coach that makes you a serious team, that'll make you a contender. Now, if he comes on and brings somebody that knows how to handle young quarterbacks, because they need somebody for Drake May, right? We saw this regular season, Joe. I think you'll agree with me. The kid has potential. He showed us a lot this season under very difficult circumstances. So Vrabel's not the guy to get him over the hump, right? Just from a developmental point of view. Now, is he going to bring his old buddy Josh McDaniels back to New England to work with him, right? Who's he going to bring? Who's going to be in charge? Is it going to be the OC? Is it going to be a quarterback whisperer? I think to be determined, but just from the perspective of, hey, is Vrabel the right guy to go back to New England, a homecoming of sorts? Yeah. Look, he should have never been fired by Tennessee. I think he wasn't fired. I mean, take your pick, whether he was asked, pushed out, resigned on his, whatever. The truth is, he's way too good a coach to sit out. I think he stayed out. Like, I don't know, Joe, do you think there was some sort of prior agreement that Mayo was just keeping his seat warm for a year and then he'd come back when circumstances were a little bit better? What do you think?
It's very difficult because I think he got the shit end of the stick, honestly, Gerard Mayo. Yeah. The guy literally, took over a team that was not ready to win. Far from it. They still need to add more talent to that defensive side of the ball. And then offensively, they didn't have a quarterback. Their offensive line looks like crap. And they have no weapons, like no legit weapons. Overall, that team needed so much help still. They managed to draft Drake May, which everybody was hoping is the future, and it looks like he's on the right path. Looked very good, but in a season where it was a rebuilding year, possibly rebuilding of 2 years coming up, it makes you wonder, like, this guy wasn't given the opportunity just to, like, here, you're going to rebuild this team and we believe in you. This seems really funny to me. Like, it was almost like, we're just going to give you this job because a lot of people, and us included, think that you can handle it. But behind closed doors, Robert Kraft might have already been up to something. He might have been looking for this opportunity with
Right.
Mike Vrabel and saying, you know what, if we could make Gerard Mayo the head coach, and then after a year, if he's available,
Yeah.
we'll go after him. So it's really odd.
Do you think Mayo's own the way he comported himself, the way he carried himself, do you think that also made it easier to let him go after one season? I mean, I kind of got the sense that
Uh,
maybe he didn't have. I don't know. Do you feel he had like the
mm.
support of the locker room of his team? Do you feel his team
I
got
thi-
away from him at all?
I really do think that some of the players, you can't say all, but some of the players were very vocal about removing him from that
Right.
position, and it almost sounded like the locker room started to turn on him as the season got down to the end. Even though
Right.
Drake May, after he got his starts and he got his opportunities, he showed promise, and the team played
Right.
much better offensively anyway.
I agree.
But I do think that, I think the writing was on the wall, at least for some of the players in that locker room, where they really wanted him out, and who knows? They probably met with Robert Kraft before the end of the season, had meetings, and then it got to this point where
Right.
now they got a new coach.
And I think Vrabel was going to be on somebody. He was going to be somebody's coach in 2025, right? He
Oh,
wasn't going to
100%.
sit out another season, right?
100%.
So I think it was just the opportunity, like before we go too deep into the process, and there's like what was
Mhm.
it, a 4-day window, 5-day window for them to hire somebody, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think they jumped on it. So in one
Oh, well, yeah.
sense, if Vrabel was going to be their guy all along, good for them. You
Mhm.
don't mess around. You see something you need, you grab it in the NFL. You don't play games. So I
Right.
give them credit for that. But I think it's a good hire for them. But I think part two of the good hire is going to be who they bring in to take care of May.
Yeah, filling out that staff is going to be critical for
Yeah.
Mike Vrabel and whatever success that he gets. You
Yep.
know, the Patriots rankings in the 2024 season offense ranked damn near last, 32nd.
Yeah.
And the defensive rank was 22nd, which is surprising to me because that defense did struggle all year long. And we look at that. What does that tell you? Well, yeah, they're 32nd on offense. We already kind of knew that, but then when Drake May came in, he still wasn't enough to get him out of that 32nd spot, but he did
Right.
show promise. So yeah, they got some work to do
And
for the
let's face it,
Patriots
Jim,
roster.
a dearth of offensive talent too. Like
Yeah,
I mean, who
yeah,
really you had Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson in the backfield. Okay, it's a
mhm.
serviceable running back position.
Yeah.
But
The
really,
I
what did you have at tight end? What did you have at wide receiver? The offensive line struggled a little bit. So it's something to build on. I think the most important. I think they can feel fairly comfortable that the most important piece of your on the field product, quarterback, they have a good shot at, and that's the most important piece in the NFL today. You
well,
can't do
don't
anything
forget
unless you have the guy under center.
don't forget either. Hunter Henry was kind of like the go-to wide receiver for them. He was because of the lack of receiver talent, they had to
Right.
go to the tight end who they had, and he played well. But maybe they can build off of that by adding some more talent, and it's going to be a while. Like this is not going to be one off season, and they're right back into the divisional race
Right.
next
Right.
year.
Right.
Mike Vrabel has a good start. Like he's a proven head coach who can the lead the team and make the necessary coaching decisions. We've seen him be successful in that. Hell, we've even seen him outcoach the great Bill Belichick in a
Yes.
game.
Yes. Yes.
So I think the
Yeah.
future's bright for them.
Yeah, I agree with you. And just another note for folks before we move on, it's like he'll follow the same formula as Harbaugh did, right?
Mhm.
Good defense, taking care of the ball, and and protecting his young quarterback until he gets some more seasoning in there, right? So it'll be a strong running game, good defense, and disciplined ball, no mistakes. That's the Patriot. It used to be the Patriot way. It'll be the Patriot way again, I
Right.
think.
Right. Yeah, we got a comment down below. He said, "My Broncos took it on the chin, but I was happy they made it." Yeah, I mean, Broncos country right now is pretty excited. I mean, they got a lot
Yeah.
to be.
Yep.
With the fact that they made the playoffs, nobody anticipated them even coming close to the playoffs, but they were managed to achieve that, and good for the Broncos fans out there. But hey, their future's pretty bright, and the
Yeah.
Patriots hope to be just as bright
I agree.
in the
And
near
by the way,
future.
that was Hody Johns. He's one of my libertarian buddies. It's good to see that I can get some of that crossover audience from politics into
There
football. So
there
it's
you
nice
go.
to build those bridges there, Joe.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Next thing that we're going to talk about here, which is interesting, we talked about Mike Vrabel. The coaching atmosphere right now is crazy. It is
Yeah.
everywhere you turn. The teams that are looking for coaches, they're bringing him in every single week by the bunches, interviewing, talking to new GMs, talking to potentially new coaches. And then it lands on Dallas. What was Dallas Cowboys going to do with Mike McCarthy? Were they going to get the deal done? They had 4 days to negotiate a new deal to keep him. But what the hell, Dallas? Now they're going their separate ways. Now Mike McCarthy, past his expiration date, is free to talk to anybody. He's going to take an interview with the Chicago Bears is the latest. You know, Big John. I mean,
Mm.
did the Cowboys, did Jerry Jones, drop the ball on this one?
It's a little strange, not the fact that they're letting him go. I put that at 50-50 all throughout the season, right? Um, is McCarthy a solid coach? Yeah. Um, is he the most pressing issue the Cowboys have? No, I don't think it is. They still don't know what they're going to do with Dak Prescott. That's the big problem right there.
Mm,
You're still tied into Prescott. You've got too much money tied
100%.
into Prescott.
No,
Um, they want to contend every year, so they're not getting rid of him. They're not looking for their next signal caller. It's not Cooper Rush.
no.
We're almost positive it's not Trey Lance, right?
Well,
So
I would have liked to seen him more. You know what I mean?
well,
When Dak was
that's the
out.
mentality, right? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, season's lost. Put him in for 4 games. Well, why are you starting Cooper Rush? Like they put him in the last game of the season, but they should have been evaluating Trey Lance under game conditions for at least 4 games at the end of the season, right?
Yeah,
And
what
they
was the
didn't do
point
that.
of trading for him then? What was the
Yeah,
point of
I
trading for him, bringing him in? Oh, he's been in the system under Mike McCarthy learning, and everybody says how great he does in practice and workouts and all
yeah
that. But the fans, hell, even the front office, don't you have to evaluate him further on the field in live action
yeah.
and see where it takes you?
I agree. I agree. So I think this is the typical Dallas slash Jerry Jones thing. They're focusing on the wrong issue, right? Like I think get McCarthy a real quarterback. I'm sure he'll be a much better head coach. Now, could McCarthy keep things together a little bit better? Probably. I mean, I'm neutral on McCarthy, right? He could be someone
Okay.
that I think could be a good quarterback. A good head coach rather. But
We
if
haven't seen
I'm
his
not,
arm yet, so you never know.
yeah, you're right. You're right. But so getting rid of him,
Yeah.
yeah. The second I heard, I saw it come across the wire that they parted ways. I'm like, yeah. Now they're going to start promoting Dion for head coach. Whether Dion comes in, whether he stays at Colorado, whether he gets a
Mhm,
different offer, whether he goes wherever his son ends up going, wherever Shadur ends up going, is another issue, right?
mhm.
So,
Yes.
but Jerry loves the hype. He's going to love the
Does.
hype of people speculating: is Dion coming back to Dallas? Is he
Yeah,
coming home to
yeah.
Dallas? So, if he's looking for ticket sales, right? If he's looking for
Mhm,
merch sales, if he's looking for
mhm.
the buzz and the hype, yeah, cut McCarthy loose. At least
Hire
start,
Dion.
yeah, hire Dion, or at least start the news cycle focusing on Dion. But Joe, both you and I think we're going to say it's like really, even if you do end up hiring Dion,
Right.
you got to take care of the Dak question. You got to. There's no two ways around it.
Yeah, it sounds like as much as there is optimism of him coming back and he's going to continue to lead the Dallas Cowboys and be their quarterback. This makes it really funky because Dak Prescott said himself after he heard the firing of Mike McCarthy, "How do you feel?" A reporter asked him. He basically said, "Oh man, this sucks. I'm bummed. Like I'm kind of disappointed that Mike got fired. So now that they've made this decision, Deion Sanders on the brink. Yes, it's flash
Yeah.
and fame, and the name of Deion Sanders carries so much weight. Coming to Dallas, you're definitely going to sell seats. You're definitely going to sell out. You got all the eyes on you. That once again, Jerry Jones is kind of through the history of the Dallas Cowboys since he's owned them. He's
You're
always been
America's
about.
team again. Yeah, you're
He's
America's
always
team again.
He's always been about flash. He
Yeah,
has. He always
yeah,
goes for the big
no doubt.
splash draft picks. You think of CD Lamb when he slid down in that first round, and it was a luxury pick for the Cowboys, but he was like, did they really need him? No, they could have went a different direction. But they're like, oh, let's get him. We're gonna put we're gonna put
Asses.
butts in the seats,
Yep,
and we're gonna make money, and he turned out to be great for them. But now with Dion, like you mentioned, is there any kind of conversations in the backdrop with Jerry Jones that if this all comes to light, Dion takes the job, is the new head coach of the Cowboys, that Dallas and Jerry Jones might have spoken and said, "Hey, we'll do what we can to get Shador." Like, because that's kind of for me the way Deion Sanders speaks. He's like, "I'm not taking a head coaching job unless I can coach my boys." He said that.
yeah.
So if this marriage is going to work in Big D, then maybe the Cowboys are making a change at quarterback. Maybe they are going to try to get Shador.
If they are, I think they may. It's not going to be good for the kid, right? Like what they would have to give up, right, to get Shador.
Mhm,
Honestly, I think they're
mhm.
better off. If that was the case, Dion's better off trying to get the Las Vegas job, right? Like he's better off going to Las Vegas if he thinks because they're at what are they drafting 6? At 6, they have a better shot of getting Shador trading up and not trading away the next 2-3 years worth of draft picks, right? So I don't know
Gotcha.
if it's that. I think it's more the sensationalism of the sensationalism of potentially hiring Dion, whether he ends up
Right.
there or not. And look, we know McCarthy is a decent coach. He's already got 2
Mhm.
interviews lined up, right? I
Well, I
know the
mean,
Bears.
here's the other thing about this too, is I think the Cowboys have made a mistake. I really do. I think by letting Mike McCarthy go, a guy who 2 times has had your team at 12-5. 2 times. They went to the playoffs. Yeah, they were one and done, but with that much success, all put together, and then you're always kind of in the hunt. Man, I just I don't know. I think this could be a move in the wrong direction. William Del
Yeah,
Pilar has it down below. He goes, Jerry Jones wants a championship now, so I think he's just stating Dion's name to get his team in the news, and that could be true too. Like because
yeah,
like we just mentioned, Dion is or Jerry Jones is all about flash. Uh,
right,
and then William Del Pilar also says Dion will not bring. Oh, is that the same? No, he will not
yeah,
bring him a championship for a few years, if at all. At Jerry's age, he wants the possibility, or yeah, possibility next year for a chip. Um, and that's true too. Like usually when this happens with owners, like we've seen this with Al Davis of formerly of the
all
Raiders,
the time, right?
where when he got to the later stages of his life and he really so desperately wanted to win one more Super Bowl before he passed, he started to do crazy things. He started to pay whatever it took to get this player or that player, and then bring in this guy to coach and all these things. He
Right.
was desperate. And Jerry Jones, it seems like he might be getting on the verge of that, where now he's making these knee jerk decisions just to try to get a chance to win another Super Bowl.
William has a valid point. I mean, Jerry's
Yeah.
getting up there. You don't know how many chances he's going to have. But the question here is, who are you going to get that has a better track record than McCarthy right now? Like the only things I could think of is if he's trying, if what he's thinking of is
Mhm.
once the postseason's over, I'm going to make a run at Ben Johnson. I'm going to make a run at Kingsbury. Get somebody like that in there. That's a possibility. Somebody who understands offense, somebody who can utilize a CD Lamb. But again, there's another team. They have some pieces in place. But they need to upgrade their talent. Like their run game was abysmal, so they need if
Yeah.
they don't get the kid from Boise State, who's Ashton Jeanty,
Ashton
right? If
Jeanty.
Jeanty, sorry, I mispronounced his
Yeah.
name. Like someone like that is going to help them, immediately bolster that game. But you still got to work. I mean, if you're willing to deal with Prescott for a season or two, fine. But if they're going to do that, then they need a coach that, to Williams' point, is going to turn it around in a year or two. Year or two,
Right.
Super Bowl. Anything
Right.
less than that is a failure. Because if you were going to do a slow build, McCarthy's your guy. McCarthy
Yeah.
knows how to develop. So
Clearly.
if you got rid of him, you need somebody that's like all or nothing. So when you look at the Commanders this year, they got their rookie quarterback. They put a few veterans around him. They kept McLaurin. They put some other pieces around him that very specifically fit Kingsbury's scheme. Postseason, and it's in your division, so it's even more embarrassing to Jerry, right? So is that his route? Is he going to make a play for Ben Johnson? Is he going to make a play for somebody like Kingsbury? I don't know, Joe, but
I mean, honestly,
Dion getting there is going to be a long shot, I think.
Honestly, the other thing too is like this offseason is very unique for anybody that needs a head coach or a coordinator or what have you, because there's a very long, talented list this offseason. Plenty of candidates out there. So even if you don't get Ben Johnson or Cliff Kingsbury, you can go get maybe a Liam Cohen from Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the offensive coordinator down there. Like, he could work with Dak Prescott and maybe
what about Robert
develop
Saleh?
him.
Go the other direction.
Robert Saleh is another name that has had a few interviews already. And I believe the Raiders are going to interview him on Wednesday, which is interesting to me because typically the Raiders as an organization, they don't bring in any of these names. They usually dig into the cookie jar and just reach all the way to the bottom for like an under the radar type guy.
Right.
But all that being said, the Cowboys, they've made their decision. They're moving on from McCarthy, and I can't wait to find out what the direction will be for the Cowboys in their new head coach, whoever that may be.
Yep. It'll be fun.
Next, yes, sir. Next, something's interesting, Big John. I saw the NFL is going to be potentially taking a look at changing the playoff bracket format. And when I heard that, and I'm like, wait, what? What are they going to do now? What are they going to twist and turn and make everybody pissed off about this time? But what it turns out is the NFL is going to be looking into the offseason about potentially making a change there. Basically giving the teams with the higher win percentage the higher rank, the higher seed. So it wouldn't go any more along the lines of like, oh, you won the division, so you're definitely going to get a home game. You're slotted into that spot. Now it's not now, but there are talks, or there's going to be talks about the NFL possibly implementing no more division winners as having home games, but the higher win percentage of teams will be getting that higher seed to get the home game as kind of like a reward for going, with 12 wins or what have you.
Right. I don't like it. I don't like it. Every year.
Is it because of change?
No, I don't think it's because of change. I think it's because every year, or just about every year, you have like what happened with the Vikings this year, right? They end up 14-3, and they're like, "Oh wow, we've got the number 5 seed. We're 5-3, and we're 14-3, and we're number 5 seed." When the Buccaneers barely squeak by, they're barely over 500, and they've got a home game. Guess what, though? Who got bounced during Wild Card Weekend? It was the Vikings. The famous earthquake shake with Marshawn Lynch with the Saints visiting Seattle. That was one of those years where there were calls for, look, the Saints were 4 games better. Why are they playing on the road? The Seahawks barely squeaked by. Guess what? Marshawn rumbled. They went to the Super Bowl. That's my point, right? Like every year there's going to be this complaint, right? Like a team with a really shiny record just happened to be in the same division with like the best team in the NFL, like what you had this year with the Lions and the Vikings, right? But hey, guess what? Everybody knows the rules. You got to take care of business at home. You got to win your division. That everybody knows that. You already
Right.
have an incentive built in place. If you have the best record, you get a bye the first week. Now, the old playoff system, prior to adding the extra team, the top 2 teams had a first week bye. So wild card weekend, if you were ranked 1 or 2, meaning the 2 best division winners,
Right.
you had the week off. Even more incentive to win your division.
Mhm.
So I mean, I understand people's knee-jerk reaction, which is, hey man, the Vikings should have been seeded number 3, number 2 this year in the NFC. I get it. I understand why people feel that way, but there's a lot more at play. Don't forget, division, part of that record may have come at the expense of a crappy division. Part of that
Mhm.
record may have been playing teams with a sub 500 record. I mean, how far do we take this equity? How far do we take this? Oh my God, let's look at all these different factors. Because, like, all of a sudden, if a team goes, and again, off the top of my head, I don't know.
Right.
But let's look at the strength of schedule now of every team that made the playoffs. Is that what's step 2 of this, Joe? Like, it's not your 1-loss record. It's 1-loss record. Let's forget the division you're playing in. Hell, if we're doing that, why even look at conferences? Let's just take the
Yeah.
top
Right.
16 teams, right? Like, so there is something to be said about divisions, conferences, and trying to win according to that. Otherwise, you take away from, in my opinion, part of what makes the season engaging. Don't forget, in the NFL, every game counts. There's a reason for that.
Right.
Unlike baseball, basketball, and hockey in this country, there's way too many games in the regular season in those sports. And what happens? The regular season tends to be dull until the last week or 2 of those sports. And then the only thing people are interested in is the playoffs. Football, every darn week is important. Every single game is important in the NFL because hey, I just lost to my division rival. This is going to come down to week 17 because I lost in week 4. Right. But
Right.
if I take care of business in week 4, I've got a tiebreaker heading into that last final week matchup for the division title. Right. We saw that kind of play out this year, like, say, in the NFC South, right? When you had the
Mhm.
Falcons, the Bucks in there vying for it up until the last week of the season. You see it in a lot of these divisions where there's 3 teams fighting for the division crown, right? Like the NFC East or the AFC South, right? Or sometimes the AFC North. You see that happen, right?
Right.
So I think it's a bad idea. I mean, I understand where it's coming from,
Yeah.
but I don't like it at all.
Yeah. And this is I'm kind of torn. I'm gotta be honest
Okay.
because part of me is like, okay, I could see where they're coming from. Yeah, you know what? Maybe a team with a higher winning percentage, does deserve to get like a home game and because they've did all that winning throughout the regular season. So shouldn't they get some kind of reward rather than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with the record that they had, where it's damn near 500 and they still got the
Right.
home game over the Commanders? Like, that's the perfect example right here. Shouldn't the Commanders deserve to get that home game instead of the Buccaneers? Because okay, Buccaneers won their division, but the other team was a little bit more successful than they were. So that's part of me, and then the other part is like traditional. The other part of me is like, why change it? What's wrong with what we have the way it's structured now?
Yeah.
Division winners should do that's the reward at the end of the year. You win the division, you got a home game in the playoffs. So
Yeah.
I'm I'm not disagreeing with you, but at the same time, it's almost like I could see it from both sides. I guess is what I'm trying to say. So, um, it's one of these things where I'm not pro, for, or against. I'm kind of just stuck in the middle here, and I'm like, I get it from both sides, and I understand, um, what they're trying to do. But again, I'm not a fan of the NFL constantly tweaking rules,
I agree. I agree.
implementing new ones,
Yep.
and now all of a sudden now we're on the conversation of do we manipulate or change the playoff setting? Maybe
Yeah.
just leave it alone.
Well, listen, it's already a multi-billion dollar industry. I mean, there's only so much saturation. I mean, you could already
Right.
you're almost at a tipping point right now, Joe, where people are like, wait, I got to follow my team twice a year on Peacock. I got to catch them streaming on Amazon Prime. I got to catch them on
Yeah,
NFL Plus. Like
right.
you're already see the and look, I know coming from a good capitalist such as myself, a good free marketeer, I'm almost loath to say this, but the money grab has to be kept in check a little bit, right? Like you're going to way over fragment your audience. One of the good things about the NFL is it is truly a national sport, more so than baseball, basketball. Fantasy football has a lot to do with this, right? Where you've got guys in northern New York, such as yourself, who are Raider fans or Steeler fans. You've got a guy like me who has loyalty to the Dolphins from his youth because I was a big Larry Zonka fan. So it's like you've got all these weird sort of
Yeah,
things, but that's what makes the NFL great. And it was the
true.
first sport made for television. So let's keep all that in mind and stop messing with a formula that works. And by the way, shout out to Hody, and I think it was MF Gaming, who I saw their comments flash up, and they were agreeing with me. So I'm always happy to have someone agree with me in the comment section, Joe. It
That's
always makes me
always
feel
nice.
good. It's
Yes, it's
always nice,
always
isn't
nice.
it? Yeah.
Yes, it is. I don't get that too
Okay.
often, but you know. Uh, Next up on the docket, we wanted to talk about playoffs, guys. This is kind of
Yeah.
what we're in here for. We've had all the discussions about what's transpired throughout this week, and there's more news to come. Who knows? Maybe news breaks as we're talking
Right.
because of all the head coaching vacancies and what have you. But we're gonna head over to playoffs here right now and try to figure out what exactly happened in this wild card weekend. I gotta be honest, there were some surprises, and we kind of anticipated the Bills, like we've talked on this show before. Last week, we thought the Bills would win that
Right.
game, but we thought that the Broncos would give up a little bit more fight than they did. And they unfortunately lose to the Bills 31-7 for the Broncos fans out there. That game was close though, John. That
Yeah.
in the very beginning of that game, it was a 10-7 game. And it seemed like, "Oh, man, this is going to be right down to the wire, right?"
It
And
was it was it
after
was tight. Yeah. It was tight.
after that 10-7, score, it was just like the Bills just made the necessary plays and they stopped the Broncos and made them go 3 and out, and then they just keep elongating and extending, that lead until it was just unreachable.
Yeah. And a lot of it builds on itself, Joe, especially when
Mm.
you've got a young team like that. Look, the Broncos far exceeded anyone's expectations, other perhaps
Absolutely.
perhaps other than their own, right? Like, I mean,
Yes.
Bo Nix, a lot of people did not have him highly ranked. And you remember during the draft, a lot of experts said, like, should the Broncos
Mhm.
even take him? Or should they
Right.
just call it,
Yes.
call it a wash and try to get
Yep.
something in 2025, right? Um,
Right.
I'm one of those guys. You know how you get like LSU receivers, and LSU receivers tend to play well in the NFL. They seem to be NFL ready. Well, I
Mhm.
think we might have to start saying that about Oregon Ducks coming into the NFL, right? Uh,
Mhm.
like I was a big fan of Justin Herbert when he came
Herbert,
out.
yeah.
When he was in the same draft with Tua, and who else was in there? Burrow, I think, right? Um, and I said, I like this kid Herbert. I like him. I don't know why, despite what people his shortcomings, according to
I
the
don't
experts.
I
I
don't
got
get
that
it.
little. Yeah, I got it.
I
I
don't get
liked
it.
him. Bo Nix. I had one question about him coming out. One question only,
Mhm.
Joe. I
Mhm.
hadn't seen him throw a pass more than 15 yards downfield in college. It seemed like everything was underneath, super
Yeah.
accurate. And
Yep.
and I understand. People said that's what he was asked to do by the coach. I got it.
Right.
Okay. So
Yeah.
my one thing is in game conditions,
Mhm.
can he hit Cortland Sutton 40 yards down the field? Can
Yep.
he hit a Sims, on a slant to on the slant and go? Is that something he can do? Well, the
I
answer
think
is
it
yes.
Yeah.
The answer is
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And he retained the accuracy and he retained the poise. Being an
Mhm.
older rookie quarterback, what is he, 24, 25 when he came out? Like
Yeah.
he's got that maturity. He's got that leadership in the huddle.
Mhm.
And so look, I tip my hat to Broncos fans. My boy Hody over there, he's a Broncos fan. You
Yeah.
guys had a great season. Cecil Lammy, a former guy here at Grumblings who used to write for us, now he's a big radio guy. I think he may even call Broncos games out in Denver. But my point is, like, they had a great season. They have nothing to be
Mhm.
ashamed of. They're going to
No.
build on this. But it's also, listen, the Bills veteran team taking care of business. Josh Allen taking care of business. I think that was expected. Maybe the score, we thought it'd be a little bit closer, but I
Mhm.
think the Broncos got nothing to be ashamed about.
No, absolutely not. I mean, and the Broncos, honestly, nobody thought should even be here. Like, with
Right.
a rookie quarterback, you cannot anticipate or expect to make the playoffs right away like that. So,
Right.
kudos to the Broncos. As much as that pains me to say, I
Yeah.
think my heart hurts right now. Uh, but good luck for them in the future. And then it brings us to the next topic about the Chargers and Texans. This is a matchup, and we got a comment down below right here. Let's take a look at that. Let's read that. Uh, Cody says it was a cool first 2 minutes, and then the rest happened. It was a good year. We were only the fourth team to make the playoffs, leading the league in dead cap. That's funny. And we were ranked 31st by NFL. Joe is a fellow with my same handsome haircut, so it kills me to disagree with him. That's funny, Odie.
Yeah,
But
people don't take, Hody's right about that, because when you consider the debt, literally the dead weight on that team, especially after getting rid of Russell Wilson and everything that came
yeah,
along with it,
yeah,
I think it was a phenomenal job. I think Sean Payton revived his reputation this season after last
yeah,
season. I think there was a lot of redemption in Denver and for Denver's fans. So good
100%.
job,
And you got to
yeah,
give a lot of credit to Vance Joseph, the
yeah,
D coordinator for the Broncos, and what he's been able to build with that defense.
yep.
It's
I agree.
incredible.
I agree.
Uh, and moving on, now we're going to go to the Chargers and Texans, and this is a game that kind of was excited to watch, but then also the Texans that we envisioned them being just wasn't there. Throughout the regular season, we saw CJ Stroud struggle. We saw that offensive line just give up
Yeah,
protection left and right. And the early on, I will say this, like early on, that trade for Stephon Diggs to get him opened up this offense even more. Looked pretty dangerous. Then he gets hurt, done for the year. Joe Mixon, great addition. Basically helped them to just kind of navigate throughout the
yeah.
league just enough to now here they are in the playoffs. And I gotta tell you, Big John, this matchup, I fully expected the Chargers to take over that game and have an easy win, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
But that's not what we saw.
No. It was interesting because the Texans, I kind of expected them to win. I'll be honest with you. I didn't
Okay.
expect them to win like that, though. I
Right.
was disappointed in the Chargers. Now, some might say same old Chargers. Like William,
Right.
our partner William here is a
Yeah.
Chargers fan, and it's like same old Chargers, except they actually made the playoffs this year. But same old
Yep.
Chargers. Like, listen, 4 turnovers, 4 interceptions from Herbert. You could have given me 10 million to 1 odds, and I still would have turned that bet down. You know what I mean? I would not have expected that from them. However, for the Texans, what I did like out of them, Joe, was the running game came back. Mixon went for
Yes.
over 100. He scored a touchdown. Listen, with Diggs and Dell out, they're going to have to rely on Mixon to carry the load offensively, right? And they're going to have to keep the ball away from, because they've got 2 good bookend rushers, but I'm not sure that defense is an elite defense, right? So the formula for this team winning is no mistakes, run the ball, and and then once you have the team behind, blitz the crap out of them, right? So it's got to be that's their winning formula. They can't play reaction football. They can't wait for the other team. They can't let the other team get ahead by 2
Mhm.
touchdowns. They're not built for that right now.
Right.
Nico
I mean,
Collins by himself can't do it. He can't do it by himself. So they got to play old school football. Unfortunately, they got to play like smash mouth. I think that's
yeah.
their key to winning right now.
Yeah, I mean, basically, they just got to be methodical with whoever they face,
Yeah.
and they just, like you say, don't make mistakes. That is
Yep.
a key thing in the playoffs. That's key for everybody,
But for them
and
especially,
for the
yeah.
Texans, especially, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
it's critical for them. If they turn the ball over more than once, then pretty much they might be in trouble, of losing. So, uh, I think going forward, you're right. Joe Mixon, you gotta rely on him a little bit more than you would like
Yep,
to. But I will say this: Nico Collins has a Superman cape on for the Houston
he
Texans,
does.
and that dude is playing out of his mind. So I lean on the run, but then when you can take shots, you gotta take them and hit them. So
And Schultz has got to step up a little bit too. Schultz, I know he's on the downside of
it's
his career, but he needs to
yeah,
step up a little more. He needs to step up a little more if he can.
that's interesting to me too. Is like Dalton Schultz last season. He was like the go-to guy. Like
Yep.
he was constantly being thrown the ball. And in this year, it's very different. So
Yeah.
I don't
Gone.
know how
Yep.
much of it is a protection issue. Is it CJ Stroud going away from him because he has Nico Collins? So it'll be interesting to see if that
Yep.
changes the next round.
Yep.
Uh,
I agree.
next one up, we're going to go to the Commanders and Buccaneers. We talked about both teams kind of very briefly, but man, oh man, if you didn't watch this game, you missed out on one hell of a primetime
And
matchup.
you know, Joe, that's the game I wanted to see all weekend. Out of all the games, you said you were looking
Yeah,
forward to Texans, Chargers. I was looking forward to Commanders, Buccaneers. That I kind of had a feeling they were the most evenly matched. Like I you could see my shirt. I hope it says "Nerdy by Nature." It used to be my company here. I used to have a fantasy sports company called Nerd
nice.
Fantasy Sports. So this is a drag of it, but still having a lot of those numbers swirling by my head. I kind of knew that was going to be the closest game. That was a toss-up game for me. And I said, out of all the games, that's going to be the best one. It's going to be the closest one. And I'm happy that it did. It did turn
It
out that
definitely
way. And to your point, we all heard about Daniels. I don't think we've been giving Baker Mayfield enough credit for the job he did this year, like 42 touchdown passes, right? I mean,
incredible.
the guy had an
Absolutely
amazing
incredible.
regular season, and you know he's the spark plug for his team. Like
Right.
he does it a different way. But how many times have we seen him take off this season, Joe,
Mhm.
and get into a scuffle with a defensive lineman? And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, the Bucks are rallying around him. Now, I don't know if I want my quarterback getting into scuffles with D linemen and nose guards, but you know he knows how to get his team ready and he knows how to
Yeah.
work his team out, right? And then on the other hand,
Baker's about that life. He's about
yeah,
that
he
life.
is. He is going back to was it Oklahoma, right? But
Oh yeah.
Jaden Daniels is also something special on the other end, right? Like out of all the rookie quarterbacks, in my mind, again, he was the number one pick overall. I didn't have Caleb Williams number one. I had Daniels number one.
Yeah.
And I
And
and I
it's
you
interesting
go
that you
ahead.
say that because um it's funny because we do our own NFL breakdown of
Sure.
prospects that come out every single year. And in my rankings, guess what, guys? I didn't have Caleb Williams in the top 3.
Mm,
And if you missed out, now it just kind of shows you that like how everything comes into place. Jaden Daniels was one of my favorite quarterbacks coming out. I said, watch out, whoever gets this guy, he's going to change that franchise.
yeah.
And the other one that I had is oh, I'm gonna forget his name right now.
Penix.
Michael Penix. Yeah,
Penix,
I,
yeah.
I had Michael Penix neck and neck with Jaden Daniels.
Yep.
Nobody else really did. But now you're going to see both those quarterbacks kind of change the direction of those franchises. And with Jaden Daniels and what he's able to accomplish, like, I don't think people can actually really realize
Right.
how rare it is for a rookie quarterback to come in, basically act like he's been here for 10 years
Right.
with the poise and what it's needed to be dedicated to the position
Right.
and perform it at such a high level that he literally carried this team
Yep.
and helped them get to this point. And it's amazing for them to one make the playoffs, like we talked about the Broncos with Bo Nix, but now the Commanders are moving on. The Commanders just beat the Buccaneers, a team that a lot of people were scared of.
That was a great game, though. I mean, I sat and I watched that game, and I said, "Wow, this is going to come down to last possession." Again, it came down to last possession,
It did.
but I like the poise. You know, the poise of both quarterbacks, actually. And I know, yeah, Baker had that fumble that kind of open the door for the Commanders, but
Mhm.
I don't know if it was all on him, that fumble. I mean, I think it was just a mistimed play on that jet sweep. I think it was like
It
off
looked
by half
like
a second.
yeah, that play looked like it was supposed to be a fake handoff, and the player and Baker, it was a combination of both, right? The player
Yeah,
came a little too close. Baker had the cone, the nose of the ball sticking out a little bit too much, and it hit it
it
right out of his
jostled. Yep.
hands.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those freak things, and you could tell like after the
Yeah.
game, you saw Baker Mayfield on the bench, couldn't
Yeah.
believe, was in utter shock, like, oh my god, did I actually just do this? Like, he blamed himself right after that. You
Oh,
knew
of
it.
course. Yeah, yeah. But you know what else became apparent? The only way the Commanders are moving forward is they have to I see the opposite of the Texans. The Texans got to
Yes,
slow the game down, we said, right? The
right.
Commanders, their only hope is to speed the game up, is to get as many offensive possessions as they can because their defense is
Score.
horrific. It is horrific. So
Yep.
they literally need to like get the ball in Daniel's hands. They
Yes.
need to get Brian Robinson going a little bit more, I think. I don't think he's back to where Robinson needs to be a tailback,
And that could
but
have been
between
part of the game plan too.
it could
Like,
have been.
you never
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But you're right. Like they have to outscore their opponents. They just
Yep,
have to.
that's it.
It's kind of like it's kind of like 2 or 3 years ago, the Chiefs and the high powered offense that they had. They would just literally just outscore you. It didn't matter what you did.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
they just beat you. Commanders got to do that too to have a shot.
yeah,
And yeah, you're right. I mean, we talked about that on this show,
yeah.
like, at the norm, about how the Commanders' defense just definitely needs
Right.
some upgrading. That brings us to the Steelers and Ravens.
Oh, hold on a second.
Ravens.
Hold on a
Oh,
second, Joe. We've got a comment from MF Gaming here. He says, Zane
excellent.
Gonzalez looked like the most nervous kicker I've ever seen. And you know what, MF Gaming?
That's right.
How many times did he fix his hair? You're absolutely right. As I'm watching this, Joe,
Yeah, yeah.
I looked at it and I said, "Wow, I don't know if he's going to make this kick because they focused on him." And I'll be honest,
Looked
I did.
frantic.
Yeah, I did not know about his OCD. Like after the game, we heard the
Mhm.
stories that he's been battling OCD his whole life. And if for those that are listening or watching, if you know someone who has like diagnosed OCD, not the joking OCD that you hear people say, "Oh, he's OCD. He has to put the cap back on the soda
Mhm.
bottles and stuff." No,
Mhm.
not that kind of OCD. I mean, like clinically diagnosed OCD. You know that it can be a crippling disease for the person that suffers from it. And while he was on the sideline, and they did the usual "Let's see the kicker," getting ready as
Right.
we get to the
The
moment of
footage.
truth. And he was doing the thing with the hair, and he kept putting his helmet on, then taking it off and combing his hair again. Then he took off his shoe, he adjusted his sock, he put his shoe back on, then he took it off, then he put it. And I said, "Wow, this guy is a nervous wreck." And he's not a rookie, but he's a nervous wreck. And then the other thing is, as he lined up for the kick, my wife was sitting next to me who knows like next to nothing about football after watching it with me for the last 35 years. But I said, "Uh-oh, look at the guy's stance. It's too open. His
Mhm.
stance is too open as he's lining up for the kick." And she goes, "What does that mean?" And I'm like, "His left foot is too far ahead of his right foot." Yeah, and I'm he's going to miss this. And then of course the doink and it went through, right?
Right.
Uh
Yeah.
It's interesting though that they said afterwards that because I guess there was a lot of online ridicule going Gonzalez's way,
Mhm.
and then like the story started coming out that he's been battling OCD for a while. His team is aware of it and all that, and they're all
Yep.
supportive, which is wonderful to hear. But I also wonder, like, is that going to be a liability going forward? Like, for some
Time
people
will
in those
tell.
situations, the OCD helps you get through it, right? Because
Yeah.
you have your
Right.
ritual, and if you could get to your ritual, you'll be fine.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but if I'm the other team, I hate to say it, if I'm in the other team, I'd go mess up his hair on the way to and from the sideline and like, "Hey, good luck," and then have him go through the routine again until but that's me being cruel. But yeah,
Yeah.
great
Speaking
game though.
speaking
Great game.
speaking of messy hair, let's
Yeah.
over to the Ravens with Lamar Jackson.
Oh,
When he played against the Pittsburgh Steelers in this wild card matchup, Ravens ended up winning it 28-14. I don't know about you, Big John, but I kind of saw this coming. I mean,
yep,
the Ravens with as much as the defense gets a lot of the nitpicking, oh, pass defense is pretty poor. You
yep.
know, how are they going to overcome that going into the playoffs? The Steelers coming into this matchup. Man, yeesh, that's not the way you want to go into the matchup. You lose in 4 games and no momentum getting into the playoffs, and the Ravens basically just took care of business in this one.
Yep. I agree with you. And this is where I get to rub it in to our friend William Del Pilar. Russell Wilson is cooked. He's done. I don't know why people think he still has a career. He really doesn't. And the last 5 games, it wasn't just this game, the last 4 or 5 games, you've seen it. If he can't hit the moon ball to Pickens or to Austin, he can't run a team. He can't. He's not. He was never good in the short passing game. He's not a timing passer. He's not a rhythm passer. The same thing that killed him in Denver with Sean Payton. Tomlin's team gave him the chance. Like, okay, we're going to play Steeler ball, run and bombs, like old Raider football almost, right? But once those deep passes got taken away, you saw it like twice in that Raven game, right? Like I think twice he tried to hit Austin on the post, threw into triple coverage. The running game wasn't what it should have been. So now
no, not at
where
all.
was the short passing game? Where was the short passing game? Now are you trying to tell me Arthur Smith couldn't figure out how to throw like a screen pass, how to call a screen pass, Joe? Arthur Smith.
Hold on. We're talking about Arthur Smith here.
Agreed. But that's what I'm saying.
Hold
right?
on. But like back with the Atlanta Falcons, he was ridiculed heavily for his play calling, and that's part of the reason why he got ousted. You come to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and early on it was like the honeymoon phase. Like, oh, he's brilliant, he's amazing.
Yeah.
And then when it came down to the X's and O's part, that's kind of where
you're right. But if anything, he's known for his conservatism, right? So when it comes to play calling, he's a very conservative. That's what I meant, but no, not the political conservative, but yeah, conservative play calling. He's very much a run-oriented coach. Everything goes to the tight ends.
Yeah.
But where was Freiermuth? I mean, like I expected the Ravens to win, but not only did I expect the Steelers to lose, I'm questioning whether they should fire Tomlin at this point.
No, you can't do that.
I'm questioning it, Joe.
I don't think so.
He's the Jeff Fisher of our times.
Mike Tomlin has been a winning coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers for years. Like this guy hasn't been unsuccessful.
I didn't say he's been unsuccessful, but much like Andy Reid in Philadelphia, he may just need to start somewhere else because it's clear to me that the furthest Pittsburgh is going to get with him is 9-8, 10-7 every year, and maybe a wild card coming out of the AFC North. Yeah, that's just my opinion. It might help both of them get a new start.
I don't think that's the right move for Pittsburgh. For as far as Russell Wilson goes, I just want to touch on that. I don't think Russell Wilson is washed. I think he's definitely a guy that can, he can definitely be that game manager for you because that's what Pittsburgh really needed, and a guy that could make all the throws.
I know a lot of people feel that way, Joe.
And there was
I don't know.
But hold on. But here's the thing: is in the playoffs too. As much as Russell Wilson keeps getting the finger pointed at him and saying, "Oh, you missed that, you missed this." What about the throws that they were right there catchable, and George Pickens dropped like 4 footballs, and Austin down the field dropped a football for a first down. Like there was mistakes on the receiving end too. Like those wide receivers were not catching all the footballs that were there. So there was a lot of mistakes being made in that Steelers game, nonetheless. But
I agree.
It will be interesting to see what happens with Russell Wilson or Justin Fields in that scenario for Pittsburgh. They got to sign. They got to sign one of them. You would think it'd be the younger one, but
you would think. But we'll see. Anyway, listen very quickly. Since I besmirched his good name, he wants equal time. So let's bring on William for 2 seconds here. William.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so ironically, I am actually working on my points on the board. One of the topics is Mike Tomlin. So you besmirched the name of Russell Wilson. I'm the first to admit this team kind of sucked the second half. But here's what you don't realize. This is the 5th time in the past 7 seasons that the Steelers have lost 3 consecutive games after Thanksgiving. And the 4th time in the past 6 years, the Steelers have lost 3 consecutive games in December. Their offense is built on a power rushing attack with a running back that over the last 3 seasons has like a 3.8 yards per carry. And that whole rushing attack is what the play action pass is built upon. So they bring no fear to any defense, not to mention they are not able to pound and grind a defense down. This is big, as Big Joe said, was a predictable game. You also, now in Tomlin's defense, that's what the topic is about. Should he go or shouldn't he? The team is going to bring him back. But in his defense, he maxes out mediocrity. He's never had a losing season. So that means they get terrible draft picks middle of the round. Now, granted, you can talk about, hey, you can find gems, et cetera, but they haven't had an impact player in terms of the draft in years. And the Steelers are notoriously known for not paying out in free agency. They don't really have a true number one. George Pickens is a borderline number one at best, who's a head case. So as far as Russell Wilson, he's not in the best situation, but I will grant you, he is in his mid-30s, and I did expect more. But that team changed its dynamics as soon as he won the starting after he came back from injury. So he's not washed up as much as I think Tomlin and the Steelers do need a divorce. Not that Tomlin's a bad coach, just sometimes you need that change of scenery. Imagine Tomlin in Dallas and with an open bank checkbook. Granted, they got salary cap issues, but that he would get. He would probably have 1 or 2 playoff wins, over the last 4 to 5 years. So that team is a mess, and it's not because of Russell Wilson. So they were one and done, but this team went through its traditional tank job once again. So I haven't written Russell Wilson off, but this team's already playing quarterback musical chairs. And Mike Tomlin has made a couple of mistakes already with his final press conferences. He's kind of thrown a few people under the bus. Their offensive coordinator, who I don't think deserves another head coaching gig, is already being asked by the Jets to be interviewed. So who knows what the stability of that team will be going into the season. But I do think they need a divorce. And Tomlin will have 20-some-odd teams lining up to hire him. And it has nothing to do with him being a bad coach. I just think they need a change of scenery. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016. My final point, I said when Tomlin was hired, Ken Whisenhunt should have gotten the job. Ken Whisenhunt went to the Cardinals. They faced each other in the Super Bowl. Obviously, the Cardinals regime has always been terrible with the front office. But I said Tomlin's true test will come once Cowher is completely out of the building, meaning his front office, his players. He has not had a quarterback since Ben Roethlisberger retired, and he has not been able to build a franchise since Cowher's players exited and the old Cowher regime in the front office exited. So there's a lot of factors that are playing here. It's not a quarterback problem there for the Steelers.
Fair enough. And William, I knew you were going to get upset. That's why I stated my opinion on Russell Wilson. Also,
I'm not upset. I just had to come in and make some corrections.
He's been put on the same list as Daniel Jones. They got to get rid of him. They got to get rid of him. He's on the same list as Daniel Jones as far as I'm concerned.
Good to talk, gentlemen. I hope you all doing well. Great show.
See you later, brother. Thanks. See you later.
All right. Now that we got all the data of Russell Wilson, we got all the history of Mike Tomlin. Now we're going to head over to the Green Bay Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles real quick. That game right there, both quarterbacks weren't coming in as the healthiest quarterbacks, we'll say. Right. And both teams, even though they were semi-healthy, man, did the Green Bay Packers basically lose everybody in one game like they did all season? Wide receivers were dropping like flies for the Packers in that game. Jordan Love, we talked about this last week. Jordan Love needed to have his A game against the Eagles, and he did not do that, did not execute. The Philadelphia Eagles, honestly, I thought this game would be closer if Love was able to play up to par. But the Eagles kind of didn't really impress me either going up against the Packers. 22-10 was the final. Big John, I got to say, injuries obviously are part of the game, but when you lose as many players as they did in that game, it's kind of hard to come back.
Yeah, to me, that was the most blah game of the weekend.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It
Yeah.
like it wasn't a blowout, so if you were a
Right.
homer for the team winning, it was sort of like
Right.
um the one thing I took away from that, to be honest, not that anything you said, I disagree with anything you said about the Packers and Jordan Love. Losing Jacobs during that game was big too. I think their whole plan was to just pound the ball.
Yep. Yep.
I caught Richard Sherman on his podcast the other day, and man, he does not love Jordan. He has no love for Jordan Love at all,
No love.
zero. And he's been ragging on Jordan Love all season long. Whether you give him credit or not, he kind of said he's going to fold under the bright light. So I don't know if that's like an experience issue. I don't know if that's a confidence issue, but like according to Sherman, one of the greatest corners in our lifetime, Joe.
Yeah.
I think he saw something in Jordan Love and said this guy just right now does not have it. He's not someone who's going to take your team to the Super Bowl. Injuries aside and all that. On the Eagles side, the one thing I will say, man, I feel so happy for Saquon Barkley. I've said it, I think a couple of shows ago, we were discussing potential MVP candidates, and I said, hey, man, I would give it to Barkley. He's the reason the Eagles are where they are, not anybody else. It's all Barkley. And class too. Like you saw at the end of the game, he broke that. He could have easily ran that in for a touchdown, added another 50 yards to his totals. And he did the smart thing. He sat down, and in the post-game interview, somebody said, hey, I saw where A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith were giving you grief about not scoring. And he said, hey, man, situational football, what if I try to score and I pull a hammy, or somebody chasing me, trying to block for me, pulls a hammy? That was the smart thing to do. And you know what? That's a team player. That's a superstar. And it just goes to show you how much, like, I think, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, all worthy MVP candidates.
Right.
But right now, if I had to fill out that ballot like I used
to
vote 15 years ago, it would be Barkley. I would definitely put Barkley. And we saw it in that game.
It makes sense.
Biggest mistake Giants ever made, letting Barkley go, and you could see that the Eagles were so happy they did.
Big John, we all know that the owner was not very happy when they allowed that to happen. So that was like his one thing. He told Joe Shane, he's like, listen, I don't care what it takes to get him back, but I definitely don't want to see him gone and going to the Eagles. And sure enough, that's what happened.
That's what happened.
Last but not least, the Vikings and Rams. The Vikings we thought they were a playoff team, right? Like, I mean,
they're one of those teams that should be seeded number 2, right?
Yeah. The Minnesota Vikings came into this matchup against the Rams, who honestly, they've clawed their way back into the playoff race. They were completely healthy for once this year. And the Minnesota Vikings and Sam Darnold, I have to say, I have been one of the biggest proponents of Sam Darnold this year. I've been telling everybody from the day one, saying, watch out, he's going to start. Then he's going to also take these Vikings, probably win the division, but and they ended up at least making the playoffs, and they're right there. So I really believed in him. I believed in the Vikings, but man, the last 2 games that Sam Darnold has played have been absolutely unwatchable. Like turning over the ball, getting flustered, getting with the pressure put on him, he just winging the ball and overthrowing players that happen to be wide open. And it was much of the same in this matchup against the Rams. Kudos to the Rams' young defense for putting all the pressure and getting into Sam Darnold's head early in the game to where the Vikings offense just could not fight back.
Yeah. Let's put it this way. Those last 2 games were brutal. They probably cost them 20, 30 million bucks on next year's contract. Easily. Easily. Because now 3 weeks ago, Joe, everybody was arguing, hey, are the Vikings going to keep him or JJ McCarthy? Do they ditch both Daniel Jones or keep what's going on? What can they get for Sam Darnold? Can they get a first-round pick? And everybody's saying, somebody will trade a first-round pick for Darnold if he's put on the market. Excuse me. These last 2 weeks. Now, here's the question. William, who we just saw a couple minutes earlier, and I were arguing in real time. And he said, I put more blame on the head coach, O'Connell. Is it O'Connell or McConnell?
O'Connell.
Vikings coach. O'Connell. He said, I put the blame on O'Connell. He should have schemed it up because it's obvious they're putting a lot of pressure on Darnold. So it's either the offensive line's not holding up, he's not getting rid of the ball. You've got to draw up something for him to get rid of the ball quick, whether it's a wide receiver screen, get the ball more into Hawkinson, get it to run the ball more, stay committed to the run, whatever it was. That was during the Lions game, the last game of the season. And I said, you know what? In the Lions game, I said, maybe the play calling had something to do with it. They were unprepared for an aggressiveness out of a banged up Lions defense. I kind of said, okay, let's write that off. But the Rams just took the Lions defensive playbook, Joe, turned it up to 11, and we saw what happened. And this time, I don't think I could blame the play calling. How many times did we see Darnold drop back and just look like he had no clue where he was going with the ball, ate the ball? Half those sacks, Joe,
were holding on. Holding on to the ball.
Holding on to it. Yeah, just could not get rid of it.
Even when he would pump the ball, like he was going to throw it, and then he'd just pull it back down and then take a sack.
He was shell-shocked at that point. He was seeing ghosts. Call it whatever you want. So, that was surprising. It's not surprising that the Rams chose to attack him that way, seeing what happened against the Lions.
Yep.
We all know in the NFL, it's a copycat league. The second someone has success against you, expect more of the same. You better figure out a way to overcome what happened the previous week if you lost, right?
Yeah.
And the Vikings did not adapt. Sam Darnold cannot adapt. Darnold cannot adapt. And like I said, that cost him. Maybe he could still get a starting gig somewhere, but his price just dropped from like 60 million a year down to 35 million a year, in my opinion, because he's going to have to prove it now. If he signs with someone, he's going to have to prove it.
And that's the thing. Shout out to Chris Shula, the D coordinator for the Rams.
Yes.
Man, what a brilliant game plan against Sam Darnold and the Vikings. And we all know Stafford in that offense for the Rams was going to handle business. We knew that they were going to be okay. It was just, what were the Vikings going to do defensively against him? What were the Vikings going to do with Sam Darnold offensively? Were they going to be able to score points? Obviously, we know the answer to that. But that game was very disappointing. I was really expecting that game to kind of be a shootout in a sense, but Sam Darnold definitely cost himself maybe a starting gig, maybe.
Yep.
I mean, he looked pretty bad in the biggest moments. You have to rise up, and that's what happened the last couple of weeks of football for him. Is he just wasn't able to rise up. Now, I will say this, going back to what you said, Will said, about, blame the coach, blah, blah, blah. In this matchup, no blame could go to Kevin O'Connell because there were receivers wide open inside the zones. They were open up in pockets where Naylor was dragging across the 10-yard cross in and was open for a first down. And Sam Darnold threw it behind him. And it's like,
I think
the anticipation was off. The timing was off for Sam Darnold. Like, there was a lot going wrong with Darnold himself.
He was rattled by the second quarter. His brains were gone. He didn't know. You could see him. He was waiting for hits. He was looking around, waiting to see where the next blitz was coming from.
Yep.
And Joe, this is where I split with William, and we could see the comment there from John Catherinos that Darnold lost a lot of money, but once again, I question Kevin O'Connell's play calling. Yes, I agree, but if you watch that game closely against the Rams, to Joe's point, guys were schemed open. Jefferson was open. Hawkinson was open. Addison was open a lot. Addison was open a lot.
That reminds me. TJ Hawkinson, there was a play where he went on a wheel route, and he is by himself. There is no defense. No defense around him.
Doing jumping jacks, basically.
15 yards down the field, and Sam Darnold is only looking to the right of the field. I could not believe my eyes, and he had time to just quick glance over and throw it.
Yeah.
It's plays like that kind of drive you nuts as a fan, it drives you nuts as a coach. I
Right.
guarantee you that Kevin O'Connell reviewed the film and was like, "What the fuck? I can't. There's not much more I can do with."
Yeah.
We had a good game plan. Sam Darnold just didn't execute it, and also the protection up front was lousy as well. There was
Right.
several times where Cam Robinson, the newly added
Yeah.
tackle for the
Mid-season
Vikings,
pickup from the Jags.
yes,
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know where he learned how to block, but there were some times where he was literally just like bear hugging a dude
Yeah.
because the guy was getting by him. So
Yeah.
I think there was poor execution on the protection side. There was really bad execution by Sam Darnold. Everybody knows that. So it was just one of those type of games that just didn't go in the favor of the Vikings at all.
Yeah. I like I said, I think Darnold has to prove he can handle the blitz going forward. That's his main issue right now. It's like, does he hear footsteps? Was he reliving his Jets days in these last two games?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think
Real
look,
quick,
yeah, go ahead.
real quick. Just want to get to John's comment down below.
Yeah,
He said, in the Vikings' defense, every questionable call we see on national TV that Stafford fumble, they called a pass, makes you wonder if the referees have money on the Rams. Uh, I could see it, but and I will say that was very weird. Like
yeah.
there was even who was covering the game? I forgot.
It was Aikman and
Was it
Buck,
Aikman?
was it?
Aikman
Yeah,
and Buck?
and
Yeah.
Buck. Yeah,
So Aikman goes, "That's a weird throwing motion." Like they called it a pass, but it was a flick. He
it was
just
like
flicked it.
this. Yeah, it was like
And then
that. Yeah,
yeah, and then I saw on the Manning cast, Peyton Manning, they had Bill Belichick. It was Peyton, Bill Belichick, and Eli
Eli.
on there.
Yeah,
And they were both talking into hey, what do you think, Bill? What do you think? And then they hear the announcement, and he's like, yep, see, can't call anything in favor of the defense. It's always got to be the offense. Big Bill's like giving them
well,
some
I'll be
crap
honest
about
with
it.
you. When I saw it, I thought it was an incomplete pass, but
You did think it
I-
was.
yeah, but I will throw this in there. I thought it was intentional grounding. Right? So it
Right,
was like it was an
right.
incomplete pass. He was trying to throw the pass, but I think he threw it at the feet of his offensive lineman,
Yeah,
and he
Puka
was still in the
Nacua
pocket.
actually was in the picture.
Well, that's who they said, right?
Mhm,
But he
mhm.
wasn't,
But it was
it's
a
not just
yeah,
that it's not just that the guy was in the zone. You have to be
right.
trying to throw it to him, right?
Yes.
It's like you can't make up eligible receivers, right? So
Mhm.
I think it should have been intentional
Intentional grounding.
grounding, loss of down, loss of yardage, but I
Mhm.
didn't think it was a fumble either.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I think they said like the referees didn't have the option to change it to intentional grounding, right? So like at that point, it's either an incomplete pass or it's a fumble, and I didn't think it was a fumble. I admit it was
Oh,
close. Like if it was called a fumble, it was one of those things, Joe, that if it was called a fumble on the field
mhm.
and
Yeah.
they said we don't have enough to overturn it, I would have said fair enough. But
Right.
given the way it was called, and then given the frame by frame, I think it was a forward
But that
pass.
but that was the thing is initially they were going to call touchdown. Initially
Right,
they said
right.
fumble recovery for a touchdown. You know what I mean? And then they had a conversation. Fans love this when referees get to the
Right,
middle of the
right,
field and they
right,
start
right,
talking.
right, right,
And they're like, "What's happening? What's happening?" And they're like, "Oh
right,
no, it's deemed as an incomplete pass," and everybody lost their
right,
minds. It's like,
right, right, right,
oh
right, right.
man, where
The
was the
irony
replay assist? Where was the
right,
replay assist?
again, we talked about this, what was it, a couple weeks ago. When do
Yeah.
you use it? When do you not use it? That's one of those weird things.
Yep.
See, if I was a referee, I'll be honest with you, if I was a referee, my tendency would be to call everything a turnover
Mhm,
and then go look at the replay,
mhm.
right? Because
Yeah.
it's easier to correct a bad turnover than it is to call an incomplete pass and then make it a turnover, right? Because now you got to
Right.
look for clear possession,
Right.
and all that fun stuff. So yeah, that would be my tease. What's that say? MF Gaming says dumb
MF
play by
Gaming.
Stafford, saved by technicalities. Yeah, much like the Tuck rule.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep.
he got
It
bailed
could be.
out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got bailed out, Joe.
For sure. For sure. And it's just one of those things. We might be talking about this, but like, hey, remember that play? About 5 years ago in the Rams game. We
A
just saw
new
it again.
rule. Yeah,
And it's
exactly. Yeah,
called,
yep,
but
yep.
it will be called differently then.
It'll be the Stafford play, the Stafford
That's
pass, or
right.
whatever. Yeah. Yep.
That's right. That brings us to our last little segment on the show here, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We really do love support.
Yes.
Love the comments down below. That's what makes this thing fun. It's interactive. We love talking with you guys out there. Make sure you stay in the comments, hit it up. You can also follow us on Grumblings Media over at YouTube. Hit the subscribe button for us. Hit the thumbs up while you're there. Don't forget to share it to everybody. And as well, you can also head over to the website, rumblingsmedia.com, for all the latest and greatest articles and podcasts.
Yes,
Sports,
sir.
entertainment, and political is all over there. It's the one-stop shop, guys. You just need to go there, no place else. And you can also, anywhere you get your podcasts, make sure you follow us everywhere. And let's blow this thing up here.
You got it.
That brings us to the divisional round now, guys. We're kind of going to go through this a little quickly.
Sure.
I know we're kind of scrammed on time here, but Texans first up against the Chiefs. I know America is going to pick the Kansas City Chiefs in this one, and it makes sense because it's not just the Chiefs playing. The referees also kind of help them out from time to time. But the Houston Texans have a very, very difficult matchup in this one. And Big John kind of alluded to what they need to do in order to win. And in this game here against the Chiefs, you can't make any mistakes. You can't just do anything. You can't do anything wrong. Can't commit a major penalty, can't turn the ball over at all. So we'll see how this game all shakes out. But the Chiefs are licking their chops. They cannot wait for this matchup. They want to prove a point to everybody. And I really do believe this is that throughout all the criticism throughout the regular season, oh, the refs help you guys. You won by this, you won by that. You only were winning by one score. They want to shut the noise down. They want to make an example out of the Texans here. I honestly, I can't pick the Chiefs. I just can't. It's not in my DNA. I'll never pick them anymore. I got to go with the Texans on this one in a huge upset. That would make my day.
It might make my day as well, but I've got a couple of friends in Kansas City, but I will not upset them this week. I'll upset them maybe next week in the conference championship. Not this week. Next week in the conference championship.
Gotcha.
I'll be honest with you. I think the Texans will probably keep it closer than you would think,
People
in my
anticipate,
opinion. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think the Chiefs are going to come out on top because I think eventually they're going to make Stroud put the ball in the air. And without somebody to take attention away from Nico Collins, and they don't have anybody to take attention away. They just cut Deontay Johnson today. So the one guy they picked up that they thought they could spend 3-4 weeks learning the playbook and getting him in the flow game, he's gone. They couldn't put up with him. So whatever's going on with Deontay Johnson, it's not good. The Texans just cut him. So it's going to be Nico Collins and nobody else catching passes. Eventually, Chris Jones, Karlaftis and Nick Bolton, they're going to shut down Joe Mixon. Eventually, they're going to make sure to make Stroud beat them. And I don't know, given the injuries, that Stroud can do that through the air. So I think the Chiefs are going to win this one.
Yeah, the only other thing is we mentioned earlier Dalton Schultz. When's he going to come along?
Yeah, if he wakes up, they have a shot. Yeah, they have a shot, but I think it's the Chiefs in this one.
Gotcha. That brings us to the Rams and Eagles. Oh boy,
Be a good one.
That's a 3:00 game on Sunday. This should be a pretty good one.
Yep.
It could go either way too. Like, that's what I love about some of the matchups in the playoffs, is that it literally could go either way. And this is definitely one of those games, man, in Philly. Ooh, with Sam Darnold and them. Oh, man, I don't know, dude. Like, I love the way the Rams defense played last week. If they continue that really gives them a legit shot of winning this game and maybe upsetting the Eagles. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to go with the Rams in this one.
I hear you, Joe. You know what I didn't see in the Rams game against the Vikings this past week? If they can stop the run as effective. We know we could get after the quarterback. Hurts is not Darnold, he's got a lot more escapability, a lot stronger in and out of the pocket. I think it comes down and look, the Eagles defense is going to have trouble with the Rams offense. The Rams offense might be one of the hottest ones. These like almost under the radar.
Yeah.
One of the hottest
Yeah.
offenses coming into the playoffs, and they're hitting their stride at the right time. Much like the Bengals, I think everyone dodged a bullet with the Bengals not making the playoffs through the
100%.
scheduling, right? Right.
100%.
So I think the Rams are the NFC version of the Bengals, except they snuck in, right? So now nobody wants to really face the Rams, in my opinion. I think in this one, though, this is where Barkley puts the team on his shoulders. I think this is the game made for Saquon, right? I think he can run the ball. I think the Eagles have enough, unlike the Texans, I think the Eagles have enough juice through the air where they can keep the Rams from focusing just on Barkley, from loading the box and worrying about Barkley. You do that, A.J. Brown's walking in. Devontae Smith's walking in. Dallas Goedert is walking in, right? You can't just ignore those guys the way you can ignore everybody except for Nico Collins if you're the Chiefs, right? So in this game, I think it's going to be Barkley. That's the difference. As much as I hated being a Giants fan, I think I'm going to have to take the Eagles in this one. Although I do love the Rams a lot, and if they did win, it wouldn't totally surprise me. But I think Barkley's going to be the deciding factor in this game.
Yeah, and it definitely could end up turning out that way. I mean, this game too, like I would not be surprised if either team won, Eagles win, Rams win. I think this is going to be one of those really good games to watch, though. Taking us over to the Commanders against the Lions. Oh, Washington. Now you got to go into the Lions' den here in Detroit.
Literally,
And
yep.
Somehow, some way, have to stay not only in the lead and just keep piling points on. We mentioned it earlier in the show. They got to outscore the Detroit Lions, and it's not an easy feat to overcome here because the Lions' offense is pretty powerful as well. So
super juice.
I mean, I gotta kind of go with Detroit. I mean, it makes sense because defensively, offensively, they're a more complete team. I think this is where kind of like the road ends for Jaden Daniels in the miracle tour that he's done for Washington. It's sad to see it, but I would be shocked and really happy if the Commanders did win.
Yeah. I echo just about everything you said, Joe. You might say that the Commanders can put up points on the Lions defense because don't forget the Detroit defense is banged up as well, right? So they're banged up as well.
Oh, especially yeah.
But I love their two safeties, Joseph and Branch. So they'll be able to, I think they'll be able to keep the big plays from happening. Where I don't think the Commanders have a counterbalance on offense is the running game. I think Jahmyr Gibbs should run wild. If they decide to run him, he should run wild over the Commanders. They have no way of stopping Gibbs as far as I could see, right? So as much as I'm a Commanders fan this season, as much as I love the Cinderella ride this season,
right.
I think they turn into pumpkins in Detroit this weekend.
Very possible. We'll have to see what happens with that Saturday night, 8:00. That's another game that I can't wait to watch.
Yeah, I think they're all good games. Yeah.
Yes, and here we go. Sunday at 6:30.
Wow.
Ravens at Bills.
It's like Ali Frazier, man. It's like Ali Frazier right here.
This is something special. Like you definitely need to have your eyes glued to the TV when this game happens because this I feel like is going to be a low scoring. I don't expect this to be high scoring. I expect this to be low scoring. Both teams kind of trying to figure each other out in the beginning, and it's going to be blow for blow. You know, it's going to be like, oh, Ravens kick a field goal. Oh, Bills kick a field goal. I feel like it's going to go back and forth, but not as I just don't envision this being a high scoring game where it's just going to go and rack up over 20s, 40 points. That this game is going to be kind of like a drag them out, and whatever team comes out of this with a win, they're going to be beat up. This is going to be a very physical game. So Ravens going into Buffalo, man, I gotta say this. The Bills defense, I know me and Big John were on the show probably a few weeks earlier, and we talked about the Bills defense. We talked about how, well, the defense is pretty bad. How are they going to fare when they get to the playoffs? But now this Bills team is completely healthy. This team is ready. They played physical football their last game. They were in the face of everybody. Now that this team is healthy and is all on the same page, I think they got what it takes. I think in Buffalo that they are going to knock off Lamar Jackson and the favorite to win the MVP by a lot of what people are saying. Um, I think Josh Allen and the Bills kind of get this thing done. I think they figure out a way to
Yeah.
stop Derrick Henry, or at least slow him down.
Yeah,
Maybe not
yeah.
stop him, but at least slow him down and make Lamar Jackson just throw from the pocket. I think the Bills can get this thing done.
This is the game of the week, no doubt. I said Ali Frazier. Call this
Yeah.
Ali Frazier 1, Ali Frazier 2. It doesn't matter. This is a knockout.
Great one. It's a great
Heavyweight bout here. Listen, the numbers, the stats, the data favor the Ravens.
Right.
First in offense, first in rushing, 10th in defense, but the Bills are middle of the road. They're 17th. They're almost exactly the median for the NFL. Passing wise, they're about the same. Ravens number 7, Bills number 9 during the regular season. So they're about even, right?
Mhm.
Zay Flowers being out, if he doesn't play,
Right.
I think is a big, big handicap for the Ravens. But we saw someone like Isaiah Likely might step up, and that presents
Mhm.
different problems now, right?
Right. At tight end, yeah.
At tight end, right? Derrick Henry. Oh man, now Cook had a great game. Don't get me wrong. Cook is one of for the Bills. Their running back is one of the underrated running backs this year.
100%.
16 rushing touchdowns. I mean, the guy's been a beast. You just don't hear about him a lot because a lot of the focus is on Josh Allen on that offense, right?
Mhm.
But let's face it, he's not Derrick Henry. This is why you sign Derrick Henry in the offseason. This is why. You have him for playoff football. You have him for January football. This is what that guy was built for. He's built for Buffalo. Like, I don't care if it starts snowing. If it starts snowing, this is the one game where the Bills don't have an advantage if there's 2 inches of snow on the carpet up there, right? Because Derrick Henry is built for this. So I think we see a lot of Derrick Henry. I think we see a lot of Lamar Jackson. So yeah, MF Gaming saying 31st in passing yards. I agree with that. But overall defense, they were 10th. It's going to be a close game. I do tend to think
so.
like you do, Joe, that it'll be the team that has the ball last is going to win, whoever that is. Whether it's a field goal or a last minute, like a tie game that goes for a tie, whatever. I would love to say the Bills just have some vestige of my New York state,
right,
or New York team advancing. But my gut is saying the Ravens.
Gotcha.
But either way, I'm gonna love watching this game. That's one of those games that when you're watching it, you're cheering for both teams, right?
Yeah,
Ravens got the ball, you're like, oh man, Ravens, and Allen has the ball, you're like, yeah, Bills. So unlike the other games where I might find myself instinctively once the game starts rooting for one side or the other, like in this game, I think I'm just going to be a pure football fan, have my diet soda and my keto snacks and just sit there and just enjoy it. This is what the NFL is about. It's just a damn shame these two teams couldn't meet in the Super Bowl. Like this would have been a great Super Bowl matchup, right? Not just or a conference championship. It's a dumb luck of the draw that they're facing each other this early in the playoffs. But we'll see. You and Joe could talk about it next week. But I'm going to go for the Ravens.
It's interesting too because Lamar Jackson in the playoff games, when push comes to shove, we've seen it how when the Ravens have the game in hand and they throw the football, Lamar he refuses to run. That's kind of like the problem that they had last time, is where in the first half he was running, second half he just it almost looked like he decided, I'm not going to run, I'm just going to throw the football to my guys. and that's kind
And
of
you
what
know
led
what,
for them
Joe?
to lose. Yeah.
Did you catch the interview where he admitted to that?
Yeah.
Like
Oh
last
no, I
week?
didn't
Did you
catch
catch
that.
any?
I didn't
Yeah,
catch
somebody
that.
brought it up to him, that very point, because last year you were like, why isn't he running the ball?
Right.
He's got like lanes. Why isn't he taking off? And he said this year, he goes, I'm not going to let that get into my head. He goes, if I see the lane, I'm taking off.
Yeah.
He goes,
Yeah.
if that's what it takes to win, I'm
Exactly.
using my legs. So I
Yes.
think that mentality that we saw last year, unfortunately, when
Won't show
he
up.
just disappeared, like in the playoffs. I think now he's like, I'm running. We could put up
Yeah.
300 yards on the ground between me and King Henry. We could
Mhm.
easily put up 3 Bills on the Bills, easily, right? So I think that sort of mentality, I don't think this year is going to be a problem. To me, it's going to be, do they let him run around and then the Bills just try to have the ball last? That's it. Just match them and then just try to use ball control and strategy and field position to say, if you're the Bills, Josh Allen is going to be the guy who has the ball in his hand with 50 seconds left on the clock. I think like that should be their strategy. By the way, same applies for the Ravens. Lamar has to have the ball in his hands that last minute of the fourth quarter. That's what we want. Up or down, that's what we want. And I think both teams are in the same spot. Both teams have the same strategy. Both teams have the same type of superstars. Receiving core is amazingly even, I think, right? If Zay Flowers is at full strength, maybe you give a little bit of an edge to the Ravens.
I honestly think that's the reason why they sat him out last week.
To have him
Like,
ready
you're
for
just
this
gonna
week.
just have him ready. Don't kind of rush anything. Let's not get him into practice right away. Let's
Right.
kind of really rehab that injury to get him ready for the bigger matchup. You know what I mean? The big one that's coming, and this is it. This is it. So, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Really do appreciate all you guys. We've had plenty of comments down below all throughout the show. You could also help us out here over at Grumblings Media. Head over. I know it's hard to find the G spot, but you can find it over at grumblingsmedia.com. Head over to the website there. All the latest and greatest articles, podcasts, everything at your fingertips. It's one-stop shopping. Head over there for anything political, sports, entertainment. We got it all there for you. Also, keep continuing and supporting this channel over at YouTube. Hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, share it to everybody you know, and follow everywhere you get your podcasts. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you later. Big John, it's been a pleasure. You're the man,
Joe,
for stepping in.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
And Jimmy, we wish you well, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Hey, everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these 2 boxes.